I gave up everything to be her perfect husband, so why do I feel so empty? The moment I looked at the man in the mirror, tanned, rested, wearing a perfectly pressed casual shirt, I realized I was staring at a successful stranger. I'm Ethan, 38, and for the last 6 years, I've worked tirelessly to become the ideal husband, the stable anchor my wife, Serafina, 37, always wanted. I gave up the life that defined me, only to wake up now, surrounded by perfection, feeling like a perfectly carved wooden doll, beautifully finished, profoundly empty. Before the perfectly manicured lawn and the predictable rhythm of suburban life, I lived in chaos and sunlight. I wasn't an IT operations manager. I was a freelance photojournalist, chasing stories in light across the wildest, most unpredictable corners of the globe. My hands were usually scarred, my skin was perpetually dusty, and my camera bag was my most prized possession. I thrived on the uncertainty, the sudden pivot, the knowledge that every day was an unwritten adventure. My calendar was dictated by monsoons, political unrest, and the migration patterns of rare animals. That life was raw, difficult, and unequivocally mine. I was 32 when I met Serafina. I was on a 2-month break between assignments, preparing for the most ambitious project of my life, a year-long deep dive into the changing indigenous communities along the Amazon basin. She was a brilliant, highly focused corporate lawyer, dealing with multi-million-dollar mergers and acquisitions. We were opposites, yet our attraction was instant and volcanic. She was the calm, cool structure I suddenly needed. I was the exciting, chaotic energy she was secretly drawn to. Our courtship was intense, a dizzying blend of her structured weekends and my spontaneous escapes. But as the departure date for the Amazon project loomed, the relationship shifted. Serafina's initial admiration for my passion curdled into fear. She didn't voice it as a demand, she voiced it as a quiet, paralyzing panic. She would look at my maps, tracing the dangerous river paths, and her composure would crumble. She'd talk about the risk, the distance, the terrifying thought of a year without contact, the chance of me never coming back. She didn't explicitly ask me to choose, she just let me see the depth of her fear, the raw, profound terror of abandonment that lurked beneath her polished exterior. She made it clear, without saying the words, that she couldn't build a life with a man who was always chasing the horizon. She spoke of our future with a desperate longing, a home, stability, shared holidays, and the kind of security she'd never had growing up. She painted a picture of domestic perfection, and in that portrait, I was the immovable center, the anchor she needed to finally feel safe. I was deeply, profoundly in love. Her vulnerability, so rare in her professional life, touched a core of protectiveness in me. I told myself that the greatest documentary I could ever create was the life we could build together. I reasoned that my passion was selfish, a boy's dream, and that true manhood was built on providing unwavering security. The decision was agonizing, yet quick. I called my editor, fabricating an emergency, and pulled out of the Amazon project. The subsequent calls canceling my visas and selling the specialized equipment felt like cutting pieces of my own flesh. The sound of my final, beloved Leica M10 selling to a collector was the final note of the old life. I walked away from the chaos and chose Serafina's stability. I chose the perfect life she wanted, making the silent promise to myself that I would be the perfect husband. The transition was surgical. I shed the sun-worn clothes and the constant travel, finding a secure, high-paying job in IT management, a field I was competent in, but utterly lacked passion for. It was predictable, office-bound, and completely safe. Serafina was ecstatic. Her relief was palpable, intoxicating. She showered me with gratitude, calling me her rock, her foundation, the man who finally allowed her to feel completely secure. The next 6 years were a masterclass in role-playing. I became everything she needed. The man who remembered her mother's birthday, the one who cooked elaborate, healthy meals, the one who meticulously maintained the house and yard. I was reliable, emotionally consistent, and professionally successful enough to remove all financial anxieties. I learned to anticipate her needs before she voiced them. I became, undeniably, the perfect husband. Serafina blossomed. She thrived in her career, rising quickly to partner at her firm, unburdened by domestic concerns or financial worries. Our social life was flawless, revolving around sophisticated dinner parties and charity galas. Our home was immaculate, a testament to her excellent taste and my meticulous care. I saw the pride in her eyes when she introduced me, not as the unpredictable artist, but as the stable, dependable, successful man who anchored her magnificent life. But while the role flourished, the man inside began to decay. My old life, the one I had extinguished, didn't just disappear, it left a void. I had traded the vibrant chaos of the world for the sterile order of the suburbs, and the silence was deafening. My passion didn't adapt, it simply atrophied. The cameras, packed away in the climate-controlled basement, became a forbidden relic. I tried once to pick up my old Nikon F5, feeling the cold, familiar weight in my hands, hoping for the spark to return. I looked around our perfectly decorated, neutral living room, and saw nothing to photograph, no struggle, no unexpected joy, no compelling narrative. Just perfection. The light was flat, the colors muted. I returned the camera to its case, a profound sense of failure washing over me. The emptiness started as a subtle thrum beneath the surface, a low, constant vibration of unreality. I was living a life that was functionally perfect, but fundamentally false. I was praised constantly, by Serafina, by her friends, by my own parents, for my reliability. But every compliment felt like a congratulation for a performance, not an affirmation of my being. I tried to talk to Serafina about the void, about the need for more than stability. One evening, after I had spent hours building a complicated shelving unit she requested, I tried to broach the subject. Serafina, I started, as she was reviewing a merger document, do you ever feel like we're missing something? Like we've become so perfect, we've forgotten how to be messy. She didn't look up. Messy is expensive, Ethan. We earned this perfection. We are secure. That is everything. She offered a beautiful, automatic smile. The shelves look incredible, by the way. You really are so handy. My colleagues all wish their husbands were half as reliable. Her praise, meant to be loving, felt like being handed a paycheck for my servitude. She wasn't seeing my emotional yearning, she was seeing a flawless feature of her perfectly curated life. The true toll of my sacrifice wasn't financial or professional, it was the loss of my identity. I realized I had become an extension of her needs, not a partner with needs of his own. My definition of success had morphed from chasing Pulitzer-worthy shots to ensuring the lawn was immaculate. I started to harbor a quiet, corrosive resentment, not toward Serafina the person, but toward Serafina the ideal, the perfect life structure she had insisted upon. I resented the fact that her security was built directly on the grave of my passion. I started taking long, solitary walks in the dead of night, needing the cold air and the raw silence to remind myself that the world was still chaotic, still real, outside our pristine bubble. What would you do? Confront your partner about the erosion of your identity, risking the stability you both built, or continue the performance, hoping the emptiness will eventually fade? I kept silent, fearing that acknowledging the lie would shatter the one thing I couldn't bear to break, her profound sense of security. I felt trapped by my own honor. The first crack in my silent commitment appeared a year ago. Serafina was away on a long business trip. I was home alone, finally giving in to the urge to go through my old gear. I unpacked the camera bag, the smell of dust and old leather hitting me with a wave of sickening nostalgia. In the bottom compartment, I found an old, worn journal I had forgotten about, my notes from the last project I completed before meeting her, detailing my plans for the Amazon trip. Tucked inside the pages was a small, folded piece of paper, a printout of an email chain. It wasn't mine, it was Serafina's. I stood in the silent living room, the paper shaking in my hands. The email was dated just 3 weeks before I canceled the Amazon trip. It was a communication between Serafina and a therapist she was seeing at the time. I read the text, feeling the blood drain from my face. She described her relationship with her previous fiancé, Mark, 35, who was a brilliant, highly successful hedge fund manager. She spoke about how Mark had taken an aggressive, high-risk bet on the market, promising them early retirement and extravagant wealth. The bet failed spectacularly, wiping out his fortune and theirs, leading to a catastrophic spiral where Mark abandoned her, leaving her not only financially ruined but profoundly traumatized by the loss of security and the sting of abandonment. She wrote to the therapist, "I can't do that again. I can't live on the edge. I need absolute certainty. Ethan is the opposite of Mark. He's safe. He loves chaos now, but he's dependable. I need to make him choose stability. If I can secure him, I can finally rebuild the wall Mark tore down. He can't leave if he's built the foundation here. He can't risk everything if he's the foundation." The realization was a punch to the gut. I hadn't been chosen for my unique charm, my heart, or my potential as a life partner. I had been chosen as the structural replacement for the instability Mark had caused. My passion hadn't been viewed as selfish or immature, it had been viewed as a threat, the same kind of risk-taking impulse that ruined her before. The sacrifice I made wasn't for love, it was for a safety mechanism. The stability I provided was not a reflection of a shared vision, it was a deliberate, calculated solution to a deep-seated trauma I hadn't even known existed. She didn't want me to be happy, she needed me to be immovable. I burned the email that night, not out of fear of discovery, but because I couldn't stand to look at the cold, clinical proof of my secondary status in my own marriage. The profound sense of emptiness transformed into a cold, focused fury. I was a professional caretaker, hired to ensure her life remained perfect, regardless of the cost to my own soul. I had sacrificed my true self for a lie of noble purpose. I stopped trying to talk to her. I stopped trying to find shared ground. The marriage became the performance it truly was, but now, I was an actor who knew the whole script, including the terrible, unwritten final act. I executed my role with chilling precision. The perfect husband, the stable provider, the immaculate house manager. But every action was fueled by resentment, every smile a practiced deceit. I started taking specific, small rebellions. I would work late, not at the office, but on a personal project I started in a rented storage unit across town. Not photography, I couldn't face the camera yet, but woodworking. It was raw, physical, and focused on making something tangible that was entirely mine. It was the sound of a man building a new identity in secret. Serafina noticed the change only in logistics. "You're working late again, Ethan. That's unusual for IT. Are you taking on more projects?" She'd inquire, a hint of professional concern in her voice. "I am," I'd reply, looking her straight in the eye, my voice perfectly level. "I'm securing our future." It was the truth, but not the one she heard. One night, she returned from a high-stakes trip, looking exhausted but triumphant. We were at dinner, the conversation floating politely around her success, when she suddenly reached across the table and touched my hand. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her eyes genuinely soft. "You have no idea how much I depend on your consistency. You are the only stable thing in my world. You let me succeed without worry." I looked at her, seeing the fragile, beautiful woman who was still desperately hiding the scared girl Mark had abandoned. My fury faltered, replaced by a deep, heartbreaking pity. I realized she wasn't malicious, she was simply broken, and I was the expensive cast she wore to heal. She could not comprehend that her survival had cost me mine. I couldn't stay, and I couldn't simply walk away. Walking away would prove her therapist's note correct, that I, like Mark, was a risk she shouldn't have taken, destroying her sense of security one final time. I had to leave without shattering her, an impossible equation. I began to plan my quiet exit, meticulously and slowly, with the same methodical precision I used to manage her life. I secured my own finances, bought a small loft downtown, messy, real, chaotic, and planned the words for the inevitable, brutal confrontation. The night I finally told her, the words weren't shouted, they were delivered with the calm finality of an official notice. I told her I was leaving, not because I found someone else, but because I had lost myself. I laid out the truth about the structural role I had played, the death of my identity, and the revelation of her therapy notes. She was destroyed, not by the loss of me, but by the loss of the perfect structure. She didn't rage about love, she wailed about the sudden, terrifying return of uncertainty. She tried to negotiate, offering vacations, less work, anything to keep the anchor in place. I'll quit my job, we can travel, she pleaded, misunderstanding completely. Serafina, I said, I don't want to travel with the man I've become. I need to find the man I lost first. The separation was devastatingly clean on paper, and emotionally brutal in reality. We divorced quietly, and quickly. She kept the house, I took the quiet downtown loft and the dusty cameras. I'm living alone now, surrounded by the rough songwood of my new projects and the silence of an apartment that is finally, authentically mine. I still manage IT, but now it funds the reconstruction of Julian, not the maintenance of Serafina's illusion. I haven't picked up a professional camera yet, the weight of the loss is too heavy. But I'm starting to sketch again, drawing the chaotic lines of the new landscape. The biggest tragedy wasn't the sacrifice, it was the fact that I allowed myself to be erased, believing my disappearance was the cost of her love. My emptiness was the price, not of being a perfect husband, but of forgetting I was a man first. I saved her from her past trauma, but in doing so, I forced her to survive the loss of the perfect husband I created. Do you think it's possible for a couple to recover when one partner's security is built on the complete annihilation of the other's identity? I doubt it. I wonder if I should have told her the truth about my misery earlier, even if it meant risking her panic. Maybe being honest about my unhappiness would have been kinder than the final, decisive abandonment. What do you think? Was my silent sacrifice noble, or was it the ultimate act of emotional cowardice? Let me know your opinion in the comments below. If this story of the search for self and the price of a perfect facade resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to follow the next chapter of my journey.